Okay, is it live on YouTube?
And that's do you wanna go to your YouTube and see if we are live on your end?
Yeah,
Um,
just as like a visitor.
yeah, because then it says we are. The only thing is, how do we see the comments? And that was a huge thing. Oh, chat, maybe?
Okay, wait. So I see our channel. Let me see. Live. Live. Oh, yeah, we're live.
Yay! Okay, cool. What does it look like?
There's wait, I'm hearing both right now. So there's like there's a little bit of a lag on the live.
Okay. I
And there
see
is a live chat box.
and I see that on Riverside. Do you see the live chat box on Riverside? If you go to chat and then you click on it, I'm gonna say hi.
Okay, yeah.
Did you see me say
Yep,
hi?
I see it. Hi. Yeah.
Ok
Do you see this on
okay.
Riverside or do you need it pulled up on
I see it on Riverside.
Oh, okay. Then
So do you see it on your end on Riverside?
well, I have YouTube pulled up, so let me go back to Riverside here. Um, yeah, I see it.
Okay, perfect.
Amazing. Okay.
Well, we are recording, so let's just get into it. Hi,
Yeah.
Marston, how are you doing today?
Hi, Lauren. I'm doing so well. I'm so pumped for this.
Me
How are
too,
you?
and just I'm good. I feel like this is going to be such a fun creative journey for the both of us to just go
Yeah.
live chat. We've never done this before, so we were going to be learning as you guys come along with us with how YouTube
Yeah.
works, how going live works, all of that.
It's going to be so fun. It's going to be an adventure. And I think what Lauren and I were talking about too was just we're all about authenticity here and we're not trying to curate any sort of image. Clearly, we're working through it as we go, but that's what we want you guys to be a part of this whole process with us and be engaging with us, like ask questions, interact. This is really for all of us. It's we're building a sense of community here.
Totally. And I was actually reflecting on that last night of a lot of people in the business world, and actually I would love your like perspective on this is, oh, don't share that. You don't want to be unprofessional or don't share that. Da, da, da. But it's like, this is so hard being an entrepreneur. It is challenging me in every step of the way. And I want to share that because that's authentic. And when people start the journey, they're going to go through the same journey of figuring out technology, figuring out your nervous system, figuring out your shadows and being triggered. But I feel like we
Yeah.
don't share it enough because we want to be like professional, that authority. And I feel like does a disservice in these spaces.
I could not agree more. I think we're so used to existing in a society and in a paradigm that cultivates the curation of, the linear path and things looking a specific way. And like, if you're going to be talking about something, there's a specific way for you to talk about it. There's a specific way for you to look while you talk about it. And I think like for what we're doing and what we're talking about, that it's like anybody who says, especially in the spiritual community, anybody who says that they're an expert on XYZ and like this is the way to do it, um, probably isn't the best person for you to be like taking advice from or looking to if they're not sharing all of the true authentic nature of their journey, all of the ups and downs, the expansion, the contractions, because it's like Instagram versus TikTok almost. Like Instagram is so curated. It's the highlight reel. TikTok is like,
Mhm.
I'm just being myself and the camera's recording and that's what gets rewarded. And I feel like that's where we're moving toward as a society, as a civilization, is to a more authentic landscape. Because I think that's what people are craving. And I think that's what we're seeing, not to get on like this tangent, but that's what we're seeing with Hollywood, with celebrity, like kind of the fall of all of that. Because
Yeah.
people are over it. We want people that we can relate to. We want realness. We want raw authenticity and vulnerability. So that's my tirade.
Absolutely. Well, and, like, I have to add the astrology because that's just what I do in my mind, and that is
Yes.
Pluto and Aquarius, you know what I mean? Like, it is Pluto and Capricorn from 2008 to now was all around celebrity culture and building that success and that wealth, and so that it can fall, and then we can
Yeah.
come out being our unique, authentic Aquarian energy. And it's interesting because I think with the amount of AI now, we don't know if it's real or not. And so when you are imperfect and you aren't that robotic speaking, people can feel like they can connect with creators more. And I think that's going to be huge,
Yes.
especially as AI gets better and better and better.
Well, and I think, with regard to AI, there's so much we could explore there, but it's like what pay attention to the resonance in the body, right? Like this is what we always talk about. But if something seems too perfect, if something makes you feel like you're not enough because of what is being reflected back to you, then like it's probably not for you, and I think that's what we're seeing with AI. It's a lot of like, this is like the pedestal, this is the pinnacle that we're striving for. Once again, it's like what institutionalized religion has done to the population. It's put someone or something on a pedestal to strive for,
Mhm.
which means that you're inherently not good enough in some way. And that's kind of
Mhm.
what I see, at least with AI on the shadow side.
Totally. And that loops to the larger conversation of needing to be that authority and perfect when you show up. And we're here being like, hey, we're learning this journey. And
Yeah.
it's fun because we both have left traditional, stable, capitalistic jobs to some degree. I mean,
Hmm.
therapy is not totally capitalistic, but they've created it to be, I believe, in a
Yeah.
system. And we are just trying to create that freedom flow life. And so
Hmm.
that's why we're really here and to be authentic
Yeah.
and to chat about that. And so today we're going to talk about time and
All
what
of
that
all the
means.
things time. All things time. Oh my God. One of my absolute favorite subjects to talk about. I could talk all
I'm
day about
so
this.
excited. Marcin is so has so much knowledge around this, and so I'm really excited just to ask you questions and hear from you because I watch TikTok videos and I'm like, "What does that mean?" My mind is trying to
Hmm.
conceptualize it, but that sounds so heady, and so I just wanna hear from you. If I knew nothing about quantum physics, I knew nothing about spirituality, what how would you explain it to someone?
I
So
mean, such an open-ended question of like just quantum physics and spirituality. I think what I would say first and foremost is they are not separate from each other. I mean, this is the same conversation we're having, just with different language. And I think this is where we get into trouble as a society, is when we try to put these concepts into boxes and categories of, this is science, quantum physics, this is spirituality, this is religion, this is
Mhm.
extraterrestrials, this is, and it's actually all part of the exact same conversation. So I guess what I would
Ooh,
say about quantum physics, spirituality, it doesn't have to be this other energy. Like I feel like a lot of people think of quantum physics as something that's, so you kind of
yeah.
alluded to this, but it's like above my head. Like it's out there. These concepts are out there. But what if they were actually made to, like, what if what we've been taught about quantum physics has been intentionally used to be beyond our ability to understand? Because that's what I
Mm.
believe to be true, because we are quantum physics.
Mhm.
It's not, and I believe that that's what I'm here to help be a bridge for, is to
Yeah.
talk about these concepts and anchor them in a way that's relatable and digestible and tangible to normal people, and to
Yeah.
like us. And we have been taught for so long, it's the same thing with like Wall Street, right? And I come from the Wall Street career.
Yep.
So many people are taught that money's just, it's complicated, and they're not going to understand how stocks and bonds work and how trading works. It's not complicated. They just want you to believe it is, so that you don't know how to work the system, so that you don't know how to live a life of abundance and ease. And it's the same thing with quantum physics. It is all about energy. It's we are if we were taught in school, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. If we
Mhm.
were taught in school that we are quantum physics, we are chemistry, we are biology, we are geometry, we are
Mhm.
geology. Like if we were taught how these concepts actually interplay with what who we are fundamentally as biological beings, as our sentient plasmic bodies, which we are plasma housing consciousness, and we could talk about that too. But if we had been taught this, I feel like we would all be living in a much different way. We'd all be living more in accordance with the wisdom of our own bodies, because we would have learned how to trust that wisdom. We would have learned that it actually is the energy that creates our reality. It is the very energy that the universe is comprised of, that the unified field or the quantum field is comprised of. And so I think when someone, when we hear quantum physics and spirituality, and you're someone who is not used to talking about these concepts, it can be easy to shy away from them when you hear all these terms, right? Like
Yeah.
bioplasma, and like there's these terms that you're like, I've never been taught what this is. Yeah, that was done intentionally. But if we take a step back and say, okay, I am energy. And
Mhm.
if the universe operates on these laws, right, like the law of assumption, the law of vibration, the law of attraction, and we start to recognize that we are constantly creating our reality from our own thoughts, from our own intentions, from our own vibrational frequency, which we were never taught, that we are a vibration, that
Yeah.
we emit frequencies. But then
Mhm.
when we start to learn that it is our thoughts and our actions and our belief systems that are these concepts, that are these quantum concepts, it begins to become a lot more digestible and palatable, because we're like, oh, I can talk about belief systems. I can talk about my feelings. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's basically my training as a therapist. Everything you just said is literally what I went to school for, but in a mental health, like, they separated it to this is what you talk about in a private room with your clients, and you don't talk about it outside of that room. So it's really interesting
Exactly.
that it is just such a it mirrors therapy in a way and everything I've learned.
Yeah. Well, I love that you just said that, because it mirrors everything. I mean, I started learning, like, oh my God, when I started receiving these profound downloads, where I actually gaslit myself a lot, because I was receiving these downloads about quantum physics and about timelines, and I was being shown holographic images and visuals of these quantum concepts. And I was like, I don't have a degree in this. I never studied this in school. Like,
Mhm,
who am I to be talking about this?
mhm,
But it was because that's how we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to believe that we can't possibly know something or glean insight into something, or have wisdom about something, unless we actually like have a degree in it. Right, that's the system coming in, that's the system talking. But I started getting these downloads, and I was like, no, these actually match up perfectly with the research I do about quantum physics concepts. And even a lot of them, a lot of the telepathic communication I was receiving, which that's what it is at its crux, which I know we'll talk more about, um, was actually taking it steps further from what our scientists already know to be true and what has already been published in textbooks. Like, this was much more forward thinking, and much more like, wait, we're getting glimpses, and it's not just me. There's so many other people like this
mhm,
getting these downloads, but it's like, no, we're being shown glimpses and information, because that's all of this is just information existing in the quantum field, being emitted into us. If we think of ourselves as antennae, we're just constantly sending and receiving information and emitting signals. And if a signal comes in and we're able to accept it and ground it, if
mhm,
we don't reject it, which I think comes down to curiosity, that's when we can start to say, wait a minute, this really resonates in my body, even though this goes against what I thought to be true about myself, or like, even if this goes against what I thought my acumen was. If we start to accept it in and say, what if I'm receiving this for a reason, and we start to kind of pull on that thread more, and then you start to see other people talking about the same thing,
yeah,
and you start to notice that there's all this information coming into your orbit that everybody is starting to talk more about, and you're like, I'm not crazy, I'm not the only one. And then you start to
yeah,
see articles about these scientists out there who are now saying, wait a minute, what we thought was true is actually not true, because we're learning more information now. So it's all
mhm,
about this like interrelatedness, this idea that all ideas themselves, just as all thoughts, exist in the quantum field or in the unified field, also known as the Akashic, also known as the ether. Anyway, I've gone on a tangent, so I'll pause there. I clearly just have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, and I love it. Someone just asked for recommendations for books for beginners.
Oh my
What
god.
do
I mean, so many. I Quantum Consciousness comes to mind. I think that's by Michael. No, hang on. Let me look it up. Um,
While you're looking that up, as you were talking, a big thing that stood out to me where you're like, I felt it in my body that this is right in my body. And you almost had to bypass the linear mind, the programmed mind to be able
mhm.
to let it drop in. And I think this is so
Yes.
important because the mind is mechanical almost, and they know that it's mechanical. So that's why psychological warfare, programming, schooling, it works so well to get us into a certain belief system and mindset because
Yep.
it's all neural pathways and we've created those rivers in our brain. And so when you listen to your body, that's the truth, not the mind, because we're not our thoughts, right? And so
Yes.
that's so
Yes.
important when these concepts drop in because instantly you reject it from the mind. Like, because I want to ask you
Mhm.
more about this reality and how are we a shadow, and we'll get into all that in a
Oh,
sec.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was so important that I heard that you're like, no, in my body, I felt like it was true. And that's how I knew it was true.
I mean, and by the way, Quantum Consciousness is written by Peter Smith. And that's a great book I'd start with. I also have a whole list of books on my website. Or no, I have a resources tab on my website with other practitioners and researchers that like are talking about this. So go to my website if you want to look at those book recommendations. I have a whole list I can put up in the chat later. Um, but coming back to just the resonance of the body, I think that is so crucial in this because our brains are, and I posted a video on this a while ago. It was a major download I had come through. But if we think about our brains as our car or our vehicle that we're like driving around in, and
Mhm.
our soul or our consciousness as the GPS system. It's all working together. The car, the vehicle itself is still like, it's still sentient, it's still alive, and it's in conversation and meant to be in harmony with the consciousness. It's like divine masculine, divine feminine is actually like consciousness and plasma working together, which is a whole conversation in and of itself. But it is about, so like the brain is physical. It's not,
Mhm.
the car is there to keep us safe. It's not there to tell us how to get to the place we're going to. It's there to get us there safely. The
Mm.
GPS is our inner guidance. It's there to tell us we're going this way and we need to trust that the vehicle that we're in is able to get us there safely. And so when I think about this, I think about the physical brain and how we're actually not meant to live our lives in accordance with what our brain is telling us. We're meant to live it in accordance to what our intuition, our higher consciousness, our higher mind, there's all sorts of terminology for it, but
Right.
what our higher mind is telling us to do. And that's what creates the resonance. And that's why we feel such dissonance and discordance when we have been so conditioned from such a young age in
Yeah.
school to ignore that, right? For the sake of others, to defer to an authority figure, to ask permission. We're told, we're indoctrinated to believe what's written in a textbook and what we're told to be true. And if we question it, we can get in trouble for that. But
Yeah.
that teaches us inherently to ignore and bypass our own intuition and our own resonance.
Yeah, and that is really that patriarchal perspective of masculine mind, and it makes me think about my history as a therapist, which is why I left traditional therapy is because it was rooted so much in the mind, mental health, instead of realizing, and it's absolutely bridging right now to somatic work and body work, but we need to be in our body to truly move through our trauma to process all of this stuff. And this goes into the timeline work because the mind is the ego. It is our protective mechanism as a child because here there's trauma down here. There's a lot of heavy shadow emotions in earth that the mind protects us from because they have shown, right? If you didn't have the ego, we wouldn't be able to literally survive despair as a baby with all the pain and
Yeah.
the suffering. And so we create
Yeah.
defense mechanisms through the mind. And then we're taught to live in the mind, stay in the mind, and it's blocking us from everything instead of go back to your body. We're on a really long
Yes.
tangent, But that is what I was like, "Oh, this all makes sense."
I mean, it does because I mean, and that's I think you just illustrated that perfectly. It is the crux of how all of this ties together. Like nothing, there is nothing about our human experience that is not interrelated. It's all connected in this way. And so I think the more that we start to like pull these threads, the more we start to realize it's all interwoven with the same fabric.
Yeah. Someone asked, "I'm curious about your thoughts around the Schumann resonance. Do you follow that at all?" So
Oh, Maggie. Hi, Maggie. Um, so yes and no. I don't follow it as closely as I know there's a lot of people out there that are like constantly monitoring it, but I will say it is a direct reflection of the collective unconscious. And it is like so when we see spikes in the Schumann resonance, it's because and the way I want to say this is it measures, I'll say it like and put in a better way, the Schumann resonance measures the trajectory of our collective unconscious. It's interesting that kind of just channeled through. Because it's actually a mirror for our I'll call it our planetary matrix, but it's really like our soul system, our star system. So it's all being reflected together in terms of the vibrational frequency of planet Earth, which is a direct reflection of the unconscious and the vibration that we're emitting at any given point in time in terms of how we interrelate with the energies coming into our planet. Does that make sense? I
yeah,
feel
and
like
it
that's
makes
wordy.
well, last weekend, I don't know if this is what Maggie's talking about, but last weekend there was massive spikes. They called it like a whiteout,
Yeah.
through the 4th through the 8th basically, and that was such a interesting few days on a collective scale because Uranus moved into Gemini. It increased the air frequency down here on Earth with Uranus being the ruler of Aquarius and Gemini being an air sign, and all this information was like and then the Schumann resonance was spiking. And I had so many clients say that they were extremely anxious, had random panic attacks, or couldn't
Yeah.
get out of bed. They were so zapped, and it was just being displayed on the Schumann resonance. It was really interesting.
Because it's a mirror for what we're and that is if you think about that, right? Like frequencies are emotions. So frequencies are always in flux. It's like what we're never holding the same frequency ever because we're constantly experiencing the whole spectrum of human emotion. So our frequencies are always going like this, but the vibration is kind of the held embodiment of those frequencies. So if you're constantly bringing yourself back to like to a certain set of frequencies, if you don't let yourself stay down here, then your vibration is going to be up here more. And that's what the Schumann resonance is really reflecting back is like the collective vibration. So it is also in flux, but it's more so reflective of how the whole is feeling and what the
Okay.
whole is emitting out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we don't bypass here and stay in high vibes because that's not being human.
Yeah,
We got to fluctuate all the
exactly.
time.
Well, that's the other thing I feel like a lot of the spiritual community preaches is like love and light, and that's just simply not the case. I mean, there is love, there is light, and there is fear, and there is dark, and we are here to experience all of it. You can't make it through the human experience and not feel fear at some point. And that doesn't and unfortunately we've been taught that like we need to transcend fear, right? Or like we either need to transcend fear, like the spiritual community says, or we need to let it control us, like the organized kind of control matrix says. And what I talk about and what you and I talk about, Lauren, is like we're working to transcend fear, but like not without the integration of it first. It's about bringing it into balance. And so many people talk about like, you know, dark, we don't want dark. We need to always focus on the light. I hear so many people talk about that. But we need both. It's feminine and masculine energy. And it's about how do we bring them into balance? How do we harness the darkness? Right. And how do we integrate it? Because if we're saying it doesn't exist, then when it does kind of show itself, we're going to reject it and we're probably going to react in fear.
And it will show itself. And we scientists continue to take the percentage of the subconscious and grow it. Like when I first became a
Mhm.
therapist, it was 80 to 90. They didn't really know. Now it's 95% of the subconscious is what we're functioning from. So now it's only 5% of our
Yeah.
conscious mind. And the subconscious is where all that stores. And I tell my clients, if we don't open that closet door and explore what's in there, it will leak out subconsciously. And you won't even know if you're always trying to focus on love and light because it will be coming
Yeah.
out. It'll be in your field. And that's the reality. That's science.
Yes. I think that's such a great way to put it. And it's also just blatantly ignoring and rejecting those parts of ourselves. Like that it's like allowing just a sliver of our true selves to be online.
Mhm.
And the more that we can allow that darkness, those edges to come up, even how jagged they might be, um, it's the more that we're able to allow the fullness of who we really are to be expressed authentically. And authenticity is actually the highest vibration. It's 5,000 times bigger than the electromagnetic field of love, which is wild.
It's wild. And this
Yeah,
is such a tangent, so I'm probably not gonna go into it, but in the sense of we had this discussion before of authenticity can be of your shadow self as well. Like,
I
you
knew you
can
were
be
going to say this. Yes.
extremely authentic in your
Ah,
shadow, and if you're consciously wanting to do that, it's just so fascinating how
it
things
is
work.
fascinating. Like you
Yeah.
can, it's well, and I think so. What my guides communicated to me when I was first learning, like how to channel them through, which we'll do more of at some point. But
Mhm.
they were telling me intention, and I'd have to. I can't remember. I have to look at the journal where they they channeled this through me, but it was about intention is the true measure of consciousness. And I thought that was so interesting because they were saying, like, because I was asking the question, how can someone who is such an evil genius in the world, we have several of those, but like these genius people
Yeah.
who are using it to control people and are using it for malintent, how can the universe be working with them and for them in this, right?
Mhm.
And just like I struggled to wrap my mind around that. And what my guides had basically told me was it's where you are emitting the frequency of authenticity is where you will be rewarded. And as long as that intention is authentic in nature, then it will be rewarded, it will be met. But they were saying that's why intention is the true measure of consciousness, because you can
Yeah.
you can be emitting a frequency up here, but your intention is not really, it's not there. There's a disconnect. Um, and so intention, they were kind of showing like intention is what I'm struggling to find the right words here. But it was basically like the measure of the soul, more or less. Like,
Yeah.
and that dictates like where your consciousness is at and like where you are on your evolutionary journey. Just because you're experiencing high vibrational output and input, doesn't necessarily mean that your intention is aligned with the highest good, more or less.
Yeah, and this is those secret esoteric wisdom of black magic and white magic, right? If you just like really
Yeah,
suss it down,
totally.
it's been around forever. The 1%, the billionaires, they know this. This is not
Yeah.
new information. What you're going to talk
No.
about today, more around quantum physics, they all know all this information. And so it makes sense of why they can use it inherently, not always for good, for power and control, because everything's a mirror. And it goes back to high vibes is not spirituality. Spirituality
It's
is
not.
experiencing both sides of the spectrum because that's all that it is. There's nothing good or bad, which
Yeah.
goes into the different dimensions, which is a great segue because we
Yes.
live in the third dimension, which is very polarizing, good, bad, black, white, which we are moving out of into a higher perspective, right? Into like more the 4D, 5D. That's the lingo.
Mhm.
Do you support that lingo? What do you think about it?
I do and I don't at the same
Okay.
time, because I think it's gotten a lot, like, way too mainstream, kinda like very new age, like 3D to 5D, right? Like,
Mhm,
everyone's talking about the new Earth, and I
mhm.
feel like, there's truth to that, yes, but people start to get this is when it gets a little bit dangerous because then people start to get attached to these narratives, and it kind of becomes almost like this cult-like mentality of,
Yeah.
like, the New Earth Collective, and that yes, but but be careful with that. Not you specifically, like I'm talking like all these
No, I know
people
you're talking
who,
about.
and
The chosen
so
ones, we get to go and
yeah,
ascend and separating.
yes,
Yeah.
and it becomes its own religion in a way because there is no ascension. There is no, like, no one's coming to save you. There is no new earth versus old earth. There are new paradigms and there are old paradigms within the same earth, and different collectives will fall into different paradigms. So what's happening here is it's really a shift in global collective consciousness of humanity. And this is where we come back to, the war that's taking place is
Mhm,
at its core a spiritual war on consciousness.
mhm.
And so when we talk about 3D to 5D, we also do have people living in 2D as well. It's which we never really hear talked about, but 2D is like even more so. It's like using 2D is using people as an instrument, or as like it's the usage of a human being. It's I'm going to use you to get myself this. Like it's operating out of that mentality. There's like zero empathy involved. There's no relationship really involved. It's just purely like I'm going to use you as this tool.
The
And then
law of
three,
one mentioned animals would fall into that. Do you believe that's like animals, or is animals more 3D then from your
animals
perspective?
are actually, so law of one, yes. So from my perspective, I
Mhm.
feel like, animals
Have so much
also
empathy
exist on a spectrum, because there are animals that are highly empathic and
and
intelligent,
intelligent.
and
Yeah.
there are animals like dolphins like exist higher up than a lot of humans on the planet.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
like animals are also on that spectrum. So
Okay.
yes, I think like at its core there are a lot of animals that would be, I think that's a safe like category or classification for 2D. But there's
Okay.
also humans in 2D. Um, but I think people get confused because they think 2D means like like lines, right? They're like, oh, there's like a line and a line. 3D is like length with height, So like, how could we possibly exist in 2D? But this is all about our dimensional realities. So when we talk about the fourth dimension, which is what a lot of people are already existing in, that is where empathy comes into play. Like it's really less so in the 3D. 4D is really about
Mm,
opening up more to things that are beyond our five physical senses. It's not necessarily operating out of them, but it's having an awareness that more exists, and that it's like more of an openness. And then 5D, or fifth dimension, is even more of that. It's actually fully existing in this state of trust and co-creation with, people say with the universe, with God, but I'll make it even more quantum. It's the state of co-creating with the unified field around you and the information that comes into your orbit, which presents itself in the form of, we're all information. So information in the form of people, opportunities, locations, events, experiences, you name it. This call that we're doing right now is information. And so whoever is watching us right now, this is a piece of information that has entered into their orbit, into their external reality, that presents itself for them to respond to. Right. So it's like this can be considered a nexus point or a node on someone's journey, and it can inform where they go after this, or how they choose to move forward from this. And I'm just using that as an example. But
mhm.
fifth dimensional consciousness is, or it's really, we'll talk about densities and dimensions too, but existing in the fifth dimension is existing in this state of being where you have this kind of innate understanding of how everything is interrelated, and how we are really no different than the animals that we're talking about. We're no different than the trees on
Please.
our planet,
I knew you
because
were
we're
gonna
all
say it.
just, yeah, because we're all just beings on this planet. And I'll take it a step further. And when you start kind of even going out of fifth dimensional consciousness, that's
Yeah.
when you start saying, no, we're actually all connected in the cosmos. And there are beings
Mhm.
outside of Earth's planetary frequency, planetary matrix, that we're also able to commune with and interact with. And so sixth dimension is more so when we're able to exist up here, when we're kind of existing, I don't want to say up because it's not hierarchical, but like when we're expanded outward, um, and we're able to interact more with the information coming into our orbit in a way that we identify ourselves as the actual creators of our reality, but we acknowledge that we're always co-creating with the people that are coming into our orbit and with the events, the objects, because we now know that objects are also moving energy, and they're
Mhm.
simply just particles that are 99.99% empty space. And so
Space.
that's when these understandings kind of start to click into place.
And from like a psychological perspective, I think about the third density, we're being born with the ego that literally creates separation intentionally of like, I am me. I created identities. I'm Lauren. I'm an astrologer. I'm a therapist. And that has separated me. And I've learned through teachings of this world to be separate from you. And so then,
Yeah.
as we start to break down the ego and realize we're not our identities, we are no longer the center, we start to see everything as one, is basically when you're saying we're going to be in that five dimension because we're functioning not from the conscious ego, we're functioning from the 95% of our brain power that we as humans can function from
Yeah.
like a
That's it.
psychological.
Yep. That's exactly it. I mean, and I think about, and again, like there language can be used in so many different ways. So it's like what language really, resonates for you, because like we're really all saying the same thing here. But I
Yeah.
think like when we talk about densities, for example, like
Mhm.
densities of consciousness are different than dimensions of consciousness. Densities are, it's like more about like there are 12 densities within our third dimension, like there, and so you can exist, it's like the dimensions are, how do I want to say this, the dimensions are like floors of a building, and each floor containing different rooms, and the densities of consciousness would be what those rooms are. Like, so it's all within the same building, but like you're either existing on this floor or this floor or this floor, but within those floors, there's all these ways that you can be operating out of from a
Operating.
consciousness level. And like so densities of consciousness, it's a lot easier to fluctuate between. So it's like you're constantly kind of fluctuating between like third density consciousness, fourth density consciousness, fifth density, sixth density. You can access those in meditation. You can
Mhm.
exist from those based on your response to someone or something in your external reality. In one moment, you can be exhibiting fifth density consciousness, and in another, you can be exhibiting third density consciousness.
Okay, that
So
makes
I,
sense.
I view, yeah, I view densities more like kind of frequencies, and dimensions more like vibrations, if we were to compare the two, if that
That
makes
makes
sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense of separating the 2. And I guess what
Mhm.
was coming up for me is, what is the word? What's coming up for me is around decolonizing spirituality. And
Mhm.
when we say we are all one, this is a topic that I think is important, is not bypassing that we do live in a world where we are different identities
Mhm.
and valuing that because this is kind of a tangent, but like we incarnated into this avatar for a reason. And this our avatar has experienced something for a reason. And on the
Yes.
larger scale, oppression, things like that. And so people new agey will say, well, we're all one. And so we just have to love each other and da da da. And yes,
Yeah.
that is the highest purpose. And also, we do live in a world where we do have different identities. And it's important to honor that so we can work through some of the individual karma. Am I making sense? That just kind of came up for me that
Yep.
I do want to name around the language of like, we are one because we are. And
Yeah.
also, it can get us into, yeah, bypassing.
Totally. Well,
Not
totally.
you,
And
but
I
just in
think,
general.
no, for sure. And then I mean that's exactly it. Like we are all one, right? Like we're all one. We're all aspects of source consciousness, but
Mhm.
we are just that. We're aspects. So we're all individuated aspect. We're not separate from one another, but in these realities and these bodies, we are, and over lifetimes we also are. So like the soul journey has its own unique experiences lifetime over lifetime. And so it's interesting too, because like learning what I've learned about the impact of extraterrestrials like on our
Mhm.
on our planet, and like involvement with humanity over the years, like it shouldn't be all about light and love. Like there are beings and people out there who really do just want to control and manipulate. And if you say, I'm
Mhm.
just sending them love because love is the most healing frequency there is, no, like that's not, they're just going to like kind of feed off of that. So there has to be a point where, because you're giving them like your energy, there has to
Energy.
be a point where we reclaim our sovereignty in all of this. And like, yes, it is about like loving our neighbor and showing love, but it's less about sending love as it is about embodying it. Because if you just embody it within yourself, that is inherently the frequency that you're emitting and the vibration that you're holding without actually giving people your energy. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, so they can't feed on
Like,
it, like, take
they
it and
can't
feed
feed
on
on
it.
it. Yeah, they can't feed on it, but it's also like, I mean, you can for sure send people love, it like and healing love. Like that's a beautiful thing and something that I love to do. But if you're viewing everyone as they can be healed through my sending them love or just through love and light, you're kind of bypassing the process that they need to go through,
Mm,
because somebody who is of the mindset or the mentality or the vibrational state, as we talked about with authenticity, that says, I don't think that I want to be of love and light. And I don't like, you can send me your love and light and I'm still going to have my intentions. Like they need to learn in a different way, you know?
mhm, mhm, yeah. So, kinda going back to dimensions and density, I think that makes a lot of sense what a density is within different dimensions.
Yeah.
Then, what is a dimension? So, is this where timelines come in of, like, you're hearing a lot, at least on my feed, a lot around, "I'm on this timeline." People will comment and be like, "That didn't happen in my timeline." I'm like, "No, that's on the news." Like, I'm in the same timeline as everyone else. Like, where are people now saying, "I'm on this timeline, you're on this timeline." How does that all come into play, and what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. I actually drew, hang on, let me get this picture. I drew a diagram when I got this download. This paper is so crumpled. I'm gonna have to draw another one. But
Travel life.
yeah, seriously. Here's my picture, like a kid at school, like
I
showing.
love
But
it.
this is so I think of it this way, like if this is the earth and this is the field, the electromagnetic field of Earth, then
Mhm,
all of these like lines of longitude and latitude comprise our realities that we experience meeting at nexus points, which are, and this is the point of singularity. This is where our point of origin, this is also our point of return, right? But like it expands out into this. And so this container is where we're all existing right now. Okay.
mhm,
So then these points, like where they intersect,
mhm.
are nexus points or nodes. And if you think of these lines, like if you're constantly moving, let's say up and down, it doesn't really matter, up and down, side to side, that is your timeline or your reality that you are operating on at any given point in time.
Right.
And so then so I think of it as like strings on a guitar, which I kind of drew down here. This is not a guitar, but this is just the visual that like I've been shown. um, so if you're operating here on this timeline,
Mhm.
on this frequency, which again, density, if you think of density, density frequency, right? Dimension is more so the vibration. Because it's more stable. The dimension is that floor of the building. So another way to think of this is, and this is all coming through so quickly right now, um, musical notes on an octave. So a dimension is an octave of notes. The notes themselves are frequencies or densities of consciousness. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do is the last note of that first octave and simultaneously the first note of the second octave. So that's kind of like that where those floors cross. So it's like, okay, I've been
Okay.
in the third dimension, right? And I've been climbing those musical notes, raising my frequency to the point
Mhm.
where now my vibration is up here. And now my vibration has stepped into a higher octave or a different
Okay.
floor of the building. Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Is it anyone drop a comment? Oh, wow, people have hold on. Yes, totally makes sense.
Oh.
Hey, Mariah. Can you talk a little bit more about the
I've been
densities?
so in this, I haven't been looking
I
at the
know.
chat.
You guys are doing an episode on ETs. Yes, we are gonna be talking all thing extraterrestrials.
Girl, get ready.
Yes, and they did say ask if we could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
You come to realize about extraterrestrials and their connection with humans. So we can definitely add that at the end.
For
Sorry.
sure. No, thank you for checking the chat, and thank
Yeah.
you everyone for being so interactive. Like, this is amazing. And let me know if these visuals make thank you for loving the show and tell.
Yeah,
Let me
right.
know if something doesn't make sense though, because the whole point of my doing this is to translate it in a way that does make sense. So let me know and I'll put it in different language. Um, but so okay, Guitar Hero. So like if you're playing, and you hit the notes as you come up to them. So those are
Mhm,
nexus points or nodes, which are literally like decision points in your life. Now, think about it this way. A big nexus node would be or sorry, a big nexus point would be like deciding to get married to someone or like deciding to move somewhere or take a new job or something like big, right?
mhm,
That's like a major nexus point. But every single moment of our lives is a node in and of itself because
mhm.
it's an opportunity for us to change how we're viewing the world around us, how we're viewing ourselves, and how we're responding to our environment. Are you with
Okay.
me?
Yeah,
So,
love
so
that.
those decisions exist like strings on a guitar. So if you're right here and then you decide you want something there's a node that comes in and you say I'm going to make a different decision rather than just hitting subscribe like my Amazon subscription. I'm not just going to keep blindly hitting subscribe. I'm going to reevaluate this. Is it serving me? How do I want this to inform my life path? Then I can choose a different note to hit and to end on. So now I moved from this string to this highlighted one right here.
Mhm,
So I just left, and I mean, I should have just done it this way. I left this highlighted string and moved on to this highlighted string, which is really moving to a different frequency, which is actually moving to a different timeline or a different reality. So, how does this all come into play with when people say, like, well, that wasn't on my timeline, or like, but I didn't experience that? So what's happening is you have been existing on a reality for so long, right? If we think of every parallel reality to exist as a series of probabilities, not possibilities, probabilities, because nothing is impossible. So everything exists. It's just a matter of how aligned you are to the actualization of that probability on that timeline. So if you have been existing in your paradigm, in your society, you grew up a certain way, certain environment, community, thought, school of thought, you're pretty much over here always. And then you start to kind of think for yourself and you start to make different decisions rather than continuing to hit subscribe. That places you on incrementally different timelines that kind of move you over here through a series of nexus points that you're using to your advantage, right? To become
mhm.
conscious of your decisions and your belief systems. So then you end up kind of over here without really even realizing it. You might slowly realize that your external reality is starting to change more and more. More people are coming in, more people are leaving. But the people that are still there and hitting subscribe to the same programs, which are keeping them on that same line moving up, you've moved over here, you've moved over here, you're already over here now, right? But they're over here. So you're dealing with people who remember things differently based on their own perspective and perception of the course of events in their reality, because everything that we experience in our reality is completely based on our own belief systems. So it's completely dependent upon our perception or perspective of what has happened or transpired. When you start making different decisions and aligning to different timelines and realities, you're expanding your consciousness, which inherently means that you're starting to view things differently. And so your perspective and perception of reality itself is starting to physically change. So you're aligning to a timeline or a density of consciousness. It's more of a density that you're aligning to first, because again, those are like the frequencies until you end up in that next dimension of
Mm,
consciousness.
okay.
So then when you're kind of in that new dimension, but with also these expanded realms of consciousness, i.e. densities, then you start to realize you're starting to see that there are far more realities that exist in our collective unconscious than we've been taught to believe. And this is where people get like the Mandela effect coming in, because they remember things differently than other people do. And it's because you're now aligned to a reality or a timeline where that thing actually never happened that way, or it happened a different way. And now we start to see, because everything is a parallel reality, that there is always a reality that exists where something else happened. Does this make sense?
Yeah. I'm
I know
just
it's a lot.
absorbing. No, I'm like, it all makes sense, and that is why I'm absorbing, because I'm like, "Holy shit, my mind is bending into new ways of
I
thinking
know.
about that specific thing you said at the last moment of, like, when you change your perception of what's happened, then your life shifts, your timeline shifts, and you're gonna remember it differently." What do you think is
Yeah.
the biggest barrier to starting to change those perspectives? Do you think on those node points, I guess? Like, is it just every day practicing, okay, my higher self, who do I want to be? I'm going to make that decision instead of who I am now. Like, what do you think is the best way to start shifting that?
Um, so two things. Number one, I wanted to say I wrote down on here timeline equals frequency plus action. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. So whatever timeline you're aligning to, it's the frequency that you're emitting plus the conscious action that you're taking. That's kind of the formula for that. So but that ties in perfectly to what you're asking about, which is, how do we start aligning to those timelines, to those realities? Like how what's the so the way that I started doing it is okay, so this is what the example I always use. If you say, for example, you are single and you really want to find your partner, and you're starting to see like all these people around you like in happy relationships, or it doesn't even have to be happy, but they're in relationships, and you're like, "Ah, I want that," and you start reacting that way and seeing them that way. This is a 26-year-old Marston, and I started feeling like I would see people holding hands in public and I would be like, ugh, eye roll. Like, I hate PDA. I hate that. But it was really just because I wanted that subconsciously, but I was
Mhm.
rejecting that in my reality. So this is, and the reason I use this, and it's for anything. I've noticed this with now that I'm actually like very conscious of this. I've noticed this with family members. I've noticed this with friends, like people who get promoted and make more money, and then how you react to that. Like how you react to anything in your external reality is it's basically the universe or the quantum field showing you what is possible. And again, I don't want to use the word possible anymore because it's what's probable for you.
Probably.
It's the quantum field showing you what the potential is that you could experience, that is available to you. Even if you don't necessarily see a way to get there yet, it's just showing you, hey, this exists. How are you going to respond to that? And this is what a lot of people miss, because these are the nexus points that I'm talking about. When you see someone holding hands, a couple holding hands crossing the street, when you see someone on your TikTok who was like, I just made $1 million, but and it's like, how do you respond to that? And I mean really respond. Like it's not a quick judgment is fine, or a quick reaction is fine. That's not response. Response is a conscious mechanism. And it's a reflection of not just our subconscious beliefs, but it's how we are consciously in real time rewiring those beliefs. So you can still think like, oh, I want that, but you can rewire it instantaneously in that moment by choosing how you respond, by saying, good for them. That is so, like, seeing them holding hands. That's lovely. I hope that they're happy. I can't wait to have that for myself because I know I'm worthy of that. Same with the $1 million, the people getting promoted. So it's about those little decisions that we aren't often conscious of that actually inform the universe. Yes, universe, I would like to see more of this in my reality. I
I
feel like
just
you're
want
going
to
to say something.
highlight, yes, I just want to highlight what you just said in the sense of it's not that immediate judgment. You can pause and then respond again, because I fall into the trap of like, oh my God, I just had fear. That means I'm not doing it right. And that means I'm not going to manifest da 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 da. And I can get stuck in the loop of doing it right. But you just named it does not matter. You might have a quick judgment, but then you can stop, pause, and rewire. And I think that is not talked about enough when we're talking
Hmm.
about these things, because it creates a perfectionism of I need to be perfect in this frequency at all times to be able to actually get my dreams. And it's like, no, it's okay to fluctuate. And that is something I want to name because I experienced that.
I love that. And it is important to name because I think that's where we come back to the bypass component of this, right? Like if we don't acknowledge our visceral feelings, our response, our reactions, like we first of all, any way that we react is just it's physical, and that's okay. And we shouldn't place that blame, shame, or guilt on ourselves for feeling that way. But it's how we choose to respond that we are responsible for. And so when we're trying to align to these realities or these timelines where we have I'm just using these examples where we have the partnership, where we have the $1 million, what we are doing is we're just responding. All we can do is respond to be in response to the information coming into our realities, because that is the universe showing you the different timelines that exist. So then how you respond to that will inform the unified field of what you are open to and curious about and accepting of. And so you're going to be presented with more information that matches that frequency. Now, it might not look like the partnership or the person on TikTok winning $1 million. The frequency will be manifested physically in different ways to show you more of what that frequency feels like. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it'll appear in different ways. I'm totally channeling all this through right now. And so what will happen then is it's your decision and how you continue to respond, which is really just those infinite number of the lines I showed on here. Those lines, there's an infinite number of, and you're just going to keep aligning till you get closer and closer to that actualized probability. So you're going from a probability, a timeline where you have a probability of experiencing that of, let's say 0.1%. Well, the more that you choose to consciously align to that reality that you really desire, the more you're aligning to 90% probability, 99% probability, until you reach a point where you are actualizing that probability.
This is
And that's
motivating
how you
me.
create. Yeah.
This is motivating me. I'm like, it's not that far away, which is why
It's
it makes
not
sense.
time. That's time. This is quantum time. It's not linear. Like this is the coolest thing. I love that just tied everything together so
Yeah.
perfectly.
Absolutely, which makes sense when people are like, you can change your reality like that because you literally
Hmm.
the term timeline jumping can seem so like what? But when you just describe it like that, every single decision is building and building and building. And then all of a sudden you're in a new perspective, new reality.
Well, and I think too, so to the people who have asked about extraterrestrials, and
Mhm.
we'll do a separate thing on all of this, but I do just want to quickly say, when I was openly contacted by my extraterrestrial guides, they literally came in, and I mean they turned my whole world upside down. But what they did was the definition of a quantum leap. And they even showed me this holographically. They showed me you were on this timeline, like on this train track. They showed me as like a car on a train track. And they said, we like you could have made it to where we need you, but it would have taken a long time, because you're just not on that on that train track. So we need to literally pick you up and place you on this other train track. Your whole life's going to fall apart. You're going to hate this. You're going to like, I loved the contact experience, but I hated what happened in my life and how everything unraveled. But it had to. And I see things so clearly now. And this was in September of 2024. And the amount that has transpired and changed, and who I am now, and what I'm talking about, and how empowered I feel, like everything is just night and day. And I see now how it had to happen that way. But that is the perfect example of a quantum leap that is not gradual. So that's not a series of actualized probabilities. That is quite literally doing something so extreme that I just moved myself completely, like with their guidance, but completely onto a new timeline. So I went, instead of hitting these timelines along the way, I just went boom, boom. So you can do that. And the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once actually talks about this concept. They include humor in it. I love that movie. If anyone is interested and you haven't seen it, watch it because you'll see this talked about. But they're like, if you want to create a new timeline for yourself or a new reality, it's essentially like creating this neural pathway. It's like a pathway that doesn't exist, but it actually does because they all exist. So it's
Mhm.
basically saying, like, there's a path now that you can create that you weren't seeing before, but we're going to show you how it is available to you if you take these steps. That's the difference is okay, now you need to know which step to take to see that this could actually happen for you. And in the movie, the example they use these silly examples of like profess your love for your tax accountant, which is like something, the character would have literally never done, but it allows her to completely quantum leap because it like sets that action sets her on a completely different timeline, which then sets her up for another timeline. So it's like this series of extreme steps. So there's so many ways that we can do this. I don't recommend doing like a major quantum leap like this unless you're guided to do it and you're nervous. Like what I went through, like I was ready for this. My nervous system could handle it based on what I had already been through and the work I had already done in myself. But I could have easily gone into psychosis or like I could have easily like something could have happened that would not have been favorable.
And I think what you were talking about with the nervous system as you were discussing the leaps. First, I just want to say I'm so excited to get off this call and start making these like being conscious of those nexus points is so
Yeah,
empowering. I just want to say that. I'm like excited. Um
good.
yes, but also the nervous system perspective I think is so important because when you're engaging in this information on TikTok and people go out and do something like out of this world and it does spiral them and now they're living in psychosis. I want to hear from you your perspective on that because you're seeing it a lot. We're seeing that a lot with AI and we're seeing it a lot on
Yeah.
TikTok of people not fully being grounded on earth, and it is spreading a lot of information of might be real information, but it's I'm babbling, you know what I'm talking about. So
No, you're not babbling. Yeah, it's you're saying good information. So man, I'm actually going to start posting more about this on TikTok. We are coming up at a point. This has everything to do with extraterrestrials too, but
okay.
when people start to learn the actual truth about what's going on in the world, what has been going on our planet, our true human origins, where we're going, like eh, you and I have talked about this privately, but um,
And we'll do an
when
episode.
people,
But we're just building up to that.
oh yeah, yeah, we will keep it private. No, because this needs to be shared, and
Yep.
the reason we're talking about it this way is because it will create this level of ontological or existential shock when people find out these truths because they will completely shatter. And this is what happened to me when my extraterrestrial guides made contact with me. They basically pulled up the curtain. They were like, "It's time for you to wake up. Like you've been living in this snow." And I was already like very deeply. I was on this spiritual journey already, but like um I had no idea the extent of like what was really going on in the world and like just the things that I was not aware of. And they were basically like, you've been living in this snow globe essentially, like many on this planet, most on this planet. um and it's time for you to see the truth because you're here to talk about this and help people through this transition. And so what is happening, what we're seeing happening on like you mentioned on TikTok with people like talking like going into psychosis and like AI kind of helping to drive this, it's people are starting to wake up to the truth of like what's really going on here, the extent that we've been lied to by governmental organizations, by institutions, the amount that we have been indoctrinated and fed propaganda. And I'm not just talking about in the US, this is across the world. um, how much has been hidden from us and kept from us intentionally to keep us under control, to keep us in fear, to keep us feeding the system with our life force energy. When people start to find this out, if they are not prepared for this, which most people won't be because they're still kind of operating blindly and unconsciously. It will completely shatter the foundation of the reality that they have created for themselves because that reality is based completely, as we know, on our belief systems and on the constructs. Of our subconscious.
Yeah.
And so when people start finding out these things, if they are not able to be open and curious and remain sovereign in themselves, like there's a concept of there's an idea an energy here of like people losing themselves
Yeah.
because we tend to be so attached to our belief systems. So unless if you can be detached from everything that you believe to be true, if you can be detached from the control narrative, from what you've held onto and gripped onto tightly for your whole life, then you're going to be more open to the new information coming in, and you can allow that to inform you on your path ahead, and to it'll just make it a more seamless transition into this new era of consciousness, into this new interstellar era, really is what we're heading into. But it's a complete paradigm shift. And so when people go into psychosis because of this, it's very natural because we haven't been taught how to regulate our emotions and our nervous system. So, like, we have all these people running around the planet right now, learning these new concepts, but um, talking about them and projecting them based through the lens of their own consciousness, which if they haven't been doing the inner work and if they haven't really expanded their consciousness yet, then they're kind of projecting these out through the lens of their own subconscious belief systems. And so it's you can see how there would be this kind of mixed messaging or the programming, because yes, people are speaking the truth. This is truthful information, but the frequency of it is what we
Mm,
need to pay attention to. And that's where
yeah.
we feel when someone is actually speaking embodied truth, you feel it. It resonates deeply within you, even if it contradicts what you think you know to be true. And I think that's the difference here because there's going to be a lot of people speaking truthfully, but it's not going to be coming from an embodied place. It's going to be reflective of their own programming, and it's going to carry that frequency. Similarly, people, and again, this we'll have to do a whole episode on this, Lauren, but like what certain governmental agencies are like planning to do going forward to control the narrative is to use
Mhm,
that against us. So
mhm.
they're planning to keep us rooted in fear, which is a mechanism for control. It's a war tactic. Um, to keep us distanced from recognizing the resonance in our bodies and turning our energy outward and looking to anyone outside of ourselves for the answers, because people will be desperate for answers because of this new information that's coming in.
Yeah. And I think the astrology loops this all in perfectly, especially the last week. So I do want to touch on that. And also, you're describing feeling safe in your body, and in astrology, that's a earth element. The earth element is like a warm hug, just being like, "Oh, I feel
Yeah.
safe." There's this sensory aspect to it. So everyone understanding their birth chart, understanding where is earth in their chart and connecting to those things can be a really powerful tool right now as
Mhm.
energy starts speeding up. And yes, just going outside, of course, but if you have a lot of planets in earth, it's really important to connect to those planets right now, connect to those parts of yourself to ground. With Uranus, an outer planet, moving into Gemini, and Gemini ruling over our nervous system, it is going to break us open. And it's interesting because you're naming, like, we are going to go through these shocks because of the information we're learning
Yeah.
is going
Mhm.
to be polarizing and different than what we know. And that is the astrology. Uranus is around breakthroughs, aha moments. It is the super conscious of the collective, which goes into telepathy, which I know we want to talk about,
Yeah.
because Uranus is reminding us we're all interconnected. We literally have an antenna and we connect through that. That is Uranus. And it's in Gemini around information and our nervous system because they are related. Our nervous system tells our mind information. And right now, over the last week, and this is just in America, I don't know other countries. I'm sure other things are coming out in other countries as well. With information coming out, it going against what people thought, even if it was a control tactic, it is going against what people think. They're now
Yep.
questioning everything. People are crashing out, and it's on such a
Yep.
small little situation.
Mhm.
And with Neptune, the planet of unity and delusion and illusion, where we can literally live in a bubble and live in it, it's now retrograde. And we have to rethink about what we're living in. All of this
Mhm.
combining is creating people to have mass awakening. And what's happening is some people are responding to people and be like, well, I told you so. You're an idiot. This should have happened. Da, 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 da. That is going to push
Yeah.
people deeper into it, close them down. And I understand why people are doing this because they're coming from their triggers. But I think right now it's just really important to highlight if someone is pulling the thread and they are awakening to information, I firmly believe it's time to hold compassion with that person and be like, tell
Yeah.
me more. What do you think? And really support them through these journeys. Accountability can come later. Right now, we need to hold one another because people are going to be crashing out, spinning out, anxious, depressed. And it's like, we got to be there for one another. I know people made mistakes and we have to hold accountability because I know World War II, they weren't held accountable. And also for the collective shift for what you're saying is coming, something much bigger than we can comprehend now, it's important we're there for
Huge.
one another.
100%. I love that you brought that up because this is really the remembrance of this is unity consciousness. I mean,
Yep.
this is us coming together as humanity. And it's not about who was right. It's not about I told you so. It's you can think that internally if you want, like we all have egos, but like this is not the time for that. This is the time to get curious, show compassion, and just be open. And because people are not going to know who to turn to. And I think this is such a great point. I was just talking to my therapist about this. I noticed on some of my TikTok videos, I've started sharing more like of my channeling and like sharing more about like my whole story and extraterrestrials and everything. And I've noticed there are a couple women that I went to college with who I like was not really close with at the time, and like just kind of different, like just different kind of groups.
Mhm.
Um, but to see they've started like following me and like liking my videos, and it's just so interesting because it's like everyone is on their own unique journey and path, and it's really interesting to see like more and more people, even the people that like you would never really even think of, are like starting to tap in more and tune in more to this, and they're like we're all kind of finding each other in the way that we're supposed to be finding each other and circling back. I had a really good friend reach out to me the other week, and I told her like that we have this channel, and she's like I'm gonna subscribe, I'm so there. But she reached out to me because she's like, Mar, I am kind of on my own journey right now, and I've never really seen any of this stuff or heard about any
Mhm.
of this stuff, but I saw your TikTok video, and I'm like we worked in finance together. She was like, you're one of the most intelligent people I've ever met, and so if you're talking about this, then there has to be something to this, even though I can't wrap my mind around it, but I want to know more. And now I'm on this journey that I'm on, and I felt like I needed to reach out to you and just like have these conversations. And
Yeah.
so I'm seeing more and more of people starting to really just like come together in really
Yeah.
weird, unexpected ways, like people circling back. It's you're so don't be, I guess, to like my point is in showing compassion, it's being open to everyone being on their own unique journeys at different stages of those journeys. And sometimes the people who are closest to us are the ones who will reject us for speaking about these things and for learning and kind of opening up more to these truths, to these explorations, because they're not there on their journey yet, but
Yeah.
they likely will be at some point. And it's okay if they don't get there, but if they do get there, I think it's important for us, and especially when we talk about like politics, it's not left versus right anymore.
No.
It's this is so much bigger than that. This is about the whole system, and the more that we can actually just say like, yeah, I if we can own like I made a mistake, or I had the wool pulled over my eyes, or I wasn't seeing clearly, or I've just changed my mind. Like I think we need to normalize like changing our minds and changing our belief systems.
With
The more we can just be there for each other and say, yeah, this impacts all of us. We're in this together.
absolutely. And there's a reason why there's another wave happening right now. And the
Yeah.
cosmos explain it. There's going to be another wave in 2026. And every time a mass awakening happens, there's more energy. And this script, I, I would love to hear your perspective on this. I believe looking and tracking the astrology, we are on the track of a new paradigm shift. The old system is burning. We are
Mhm.
collectively, enough people have awoken. I can clearly see the path of change. It's
Yeah.
coming. I think 2 months ago, I was like, oh, brace in. Okay, we're going left or we're going right. But I really see we are
2
going
months ago,
right.
I was crying myself to sleep every night, like, "What is happening? Where am I going?"
Yeah. But
It's so true, though.
after about a week ago, seeing this another round, and that's only going to happen more and more, and all the planets are about to go retrograde. We're all going to be revising, reflecting over the next 6 months. So a lot of people are going to wake up. And so now we can feel more embodied, trust the process, keep going, and realize every
Yeah,
time someone wakes up, that was intentional for the mass awakening process. Because when they didn't wake up, they triggered you to wake up, they triggered yourself to heal more, and that
yeah,
was important. And that's part of the bigger thing that I think we forget. The ego comes in and we're like, well, you hurt me and you did this and you're da da da. And then we
totally.
shut down that growth.
And we have attachments to that too. Like, "Oh, well, this person did this," and that's our attachment to that version of that person. That's not necessarily who they are now or how they view themselves to be. And that's
Yeah.
something I think about a lot is, like, we know versions of people, but we don't
Mhm.
actually know the fullness of these people because we know them based on how our consciousness was perceiving them in the relationship that we had. And I love that you use the word script because that is like the perfect word for all this. We are quite literally recoding. We're rewriting the code or rewriting the script for humanity's future here on earth. Like we are informing it as we go. It's not set in stone because it's constantly being created, and future versions of ourselves are informing the past versions of ourselves because time is simultaneous, it's non-linear, this is quantum time. And so our future is informing our past and our past is informing our future, but it's really both of those things are being done through the present moment. And so when we sit and say we are here right now, how can I hold this space for myself and how can I hold this space for others? It's going to be messy. It's going to be chaotic. Like if we think it's chaotic now, I mean, buckle up because like it's going to get more chaotic and it's just a matter of that's how do we view this? Like your to your point, Lauren, right? Like we could view this as the worst thing to be happening in our country and in our world, and in many ways it is, but at the same time we could also view it as the most empowering thing to happen for us, because if this is what it takes, which it clearly does, for people to wake up, and I use the word remember the truth of who we are, remember our own power, remember our sovereignty, then this is really just a tool for us to use. We can decide how we perceive it and say, how much are we actually willing to accept here? How much are we willing to roll over again? And how are we going to reclaim, I keep saying reclaim our sovereignty because that's really what it is. It's been stripped from us for so long.
Yeah.
And so this is really the process of us stepping into our power, and we can't do that alone. I mean, it is an individual process. Like we need to come to this remembrance in ourselves. You can lead a horse to water, right? But like you can't tell your friend, hey, wake up. Like if someone had told me that when I was 26, I would have been like, you're crazy. Like but so you can't do that to other people, you can do it within yourself, and then you can just be that. You can just emit that frequency, be that light, be the lighthouse in the dark for people. They'll flock to you, they'll know who to come to. You'll be like a puzzle piece for them, as they're assembling their puzzle, and you'll be able to help them along the way, and then they'll be able to help someone else along the way, and it's this beautiful ripple effect that ultimately hopefully leads to the unification of everyone, because that's how we stop everything from happening, that's how we rewrite the script.
Totally. And it is really empowering, even though the worst of the worst is happening on the earth right now, in the sense of pending a massive war, a genocide, concentration camps. Literally, the worst things in history are coming back right now. So we can respond
Yep.
differently. We can rewrite how we're responding. And
Yep.
truly, we are. And even though those shadows, like, I can't even comprehend, especially after having a kid, hearing the videos of the child screaming for their mother, um,
Yeah.
getting pulled from them, it's the worst of the worst. That is the darkest energy, But then you see all of a sudden everyone coming out, the communities coming out for one another, fighting for one another. And I have goosebumps because that is the lightest of light too. And that's what's so empowering right now in all of the darkness, to just witness humanity come together and say no. And even though, of
Mhm.
course, there's going to be people who are still asleep, and again, that's their timeline. But seeing all the other beautiful things happening, it really holds hope for me right now in such a dark times when there is such dark energy. And that is why there's always dark and always light, because you can't have the light without the dark down here.
Exactly, exactly. Like, we only know light because of the dark.
Yeah.
If it were all light, I mean, we wouldn't be having this human experience. We wouldn't be
Mm.
learning how to alchemize energy, manipulate energy, and that's what we're here to do. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Oh my God, this is so much in
So much.
this. In my head, I'm like getting a headache now because I like the
Yeah.
channeled information comes through so strongly, and then I just get a headache afterward. But that's how I also know that it was really good, because
Um,
it's powerful.
so powerful. A lot of different topics. I do not now, because I do feel like it's like a natural wrap time, but
Mhm.
maybe a teaser for next time. Telepathy for
Yeah.
sure. And then
Yep.
also just the concept that the past and the future are all interconnected in the here and now, because I think that is also a concept that would be helpful for people to dive more
I
into.
agree. I think that, and telepathy will also include extraterrestrials too. So, because it's really all interrelated. So, yeah, this is perfect. I love this. Yeah, that's a good teaser. Anything else that you want to add to that? I think that'll be like a great conversation in and of itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And we'll just continue to monitor everything that's going on, and on all the different things, right? Like the astrology, the human resonance, the world stage, like it's all
Yeah.
mirroring each other. And so every week there's just so much happening because you just see it. And Mercury's about to go retrograde in the next few days. And so just for everyone who's listening to this, it's really important right now, for the next few weeks, to just go within, not making these big massive decisions yet, to just be very intentional to revising and reflect areas of your life, relationships in your life, but most importantly, it's in the sign of Leo. How are you going to be authentically you going forward? What decisions do you need to make? Oh, that just wraps into the nexus points and timelines. We are literally revising, re-editing the decisions to make yourself more authentic, to enjoy life a little bit more, to be more playful. And so, especially as we enter Leo season, Mercury's going to go retrograde in Leo. It's this moment in time that we're starting to choose ourselves to live more authentic and not for everyone else, which is why we just had the full moon in Capricorn as well, releasing these scripts around what success is and what I have to do and what ladders I have to climb, and realizing that you get to create the version of success for yourself. You don't have to follow these paths. And then this Mercury retrograde is really going to go into that. Saturn's also retrograding during this time. So I could,
Huge.
huge. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are going to be experiencing some insecurities, some self worth issues, because fire signs is around the self. And so Aries with Saturn there, Saturn's like, hey, step up. How are you going to be that leader? And it's going to look different for everyone. But when it's retrograding, it's making you look at the areas, the shadow parts of yourself that don't feel as confident to step into that intentionally. And so with Mercury retrograde and Saturn retrograde, if you are feeling more insecure, perfect. That should be happening. Those are the things that want to come up so we can face them and move through them. So then when these planets are direct, you are full steam ahead. And it is just so cosmic right now that all of us are having to go within so we can move forward again, because eclipse season's coming, and we'll talk about eclipse season in another episode. But basically, it's just setting us up right now, for massive change that's coming.
Mm. I love when you get all astrological. You're so good. I'm like, yes, tell me everything. Oh my God. Okay. This is going to be so good. We have so much to cover in the calls to come. And I can't wait to see. Also, if anybody has suggestions, reach out to us. Like, I love that we already had some people ask for us to talk about certain things. So, the more the merrier. We're here for
Yeah.
it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining in live. If you're not live, thanks for listening. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. What time is it for you in Europe?
7. Oh, no, we started at 6. So 6 p.m. Central European Standard Time.
Love it. Awesome.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Bye.